Hi everyone, this is Dr. Wendy Sweet from My Menopause Transformation. Thank you for being here in my online community. I'm from New Zealand, and as we're coming into June, even though the weather has been quite mild in the South Island where I live, the seasons are changing, and it's always a prompt for me to tell you about some of the changes that are going on in our body as we come through our menopause transition. And whether it's summer or winter, it's a really important time of the year. And some of you might find that your symptoms are a little bit different or a little bit worse as you come into the seasonal changes that occur, throughout our lives. And as I began to explore the women's health and aging literature as part of my doctoral studies and positioned our menopause transition into longevity medicine and into women's health and aging kind of literature, then I realized that there was this huge area of information that we really weren't being told and we weren't having shared with us. And that literature really starts to explore the changes that go on in our body as our hormones start to change. Now, those of you who have watched my masterclass on menopause, remember that that's online for you, and you can check out what that is on the website. But as I've taken that seminar throughout New Zealand, Australia, and the United Kingdom before the world went into chaos, I used to say to women, how many of you are confused about food and confused about the type of nutrition that you need as you come through menopause? And of course, nearly every hand would shoot up in the room. And I was confused as well. At the time, I was teaching some nutrition papers at university, and I began to understand that I really wasn't focused on the type of nutrition that we need as we come through this very vulnerable time in our lives, which is called menopause. Now, menopause, of course, is a natural event. All women go through it. But I was very curious about why there are numerous women throughout the world who experience so many symptoms, particularly in Western societies compared to some other cultures. And again, I tell you about that in the masterclass. But the more that I began to understand this particular phase of our life, the more that I began to understand that that estrogen and progesterone have a role all around our body, and many of our symptoms are being looked at in isolation, whereas what happens and how we feel is all the different symptoms that kind of arrive in our 40s and 50s and might even go on into post-menopause into our late 50s and 60s. So, these symptoms become quite debilitating for many women, as it did for me as well. But the more that I was reading and the more that I was looking at this particular phase of life, the more I began to understand that a lot of the problems in our mother's generation are to do with the changes that occur around our body, and those changes start to occur in menopause. And some of those changes include our skin. For example, we have numerous estrogen receptors in our skin, and these estrogen receptors help to absorb vitamin D. And of course, vitamin D is critical for calcium metabolism in the body. And of course, one of the problems for our mother's generation, one of the health problems, has been linked to osteoporosis or bone disease. So it's really, fascinating when you start to understand that those changes begin earlier than we think. So as the seasons are changing, those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, you can get outside more, hopefully. The sun will shine, you'll be able to get some sun on your skin and allow your body to absorb vitamin D. Those of you who are in the Southern Hemisphere, as I am, then you might like to get your vitamin D levels checked, and of course explore whether or not you need a supplement. So those changes are really important, because if we don't have enough vitamin D, then this affects our gut health, it affects our heart health, and it affects our sleep. And we know that sleep is so precious as we come through menopause. But today in this short little video, I also want to focus you on the role of estrogen in our blood vessels. And I'm always talking about this. I hope you've read some of my articles that I post for you in the newsletter. And it's really important to me as a topic. I feel very passionate about it, because post-menopause heart disease is the #1 health issue that many women will face in the Western world. And New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the UK and Ireland have, and as well as America, have some of the highest incidences of heart disease in postmenopausal women. And if we don't change our lifestyle as we come through menopause, then that can become an issue for numerous women. So that's something that we really need to take on board. And the reason for this is because estrogen has a major role to play in our blood vessels and the vascularity of our blood vessels, or the dilation of them. And as we come through menopause, then these blood vessels can actually stiffen. In medicine, this is known as vascular stiffness, and I have numerous articles in my blog page about that. So one of the things that I really focus women on in my 12-week programs, you can look at those under My Menopause Transformation. They differ depending on whether women want weight loss or not. And one of the things that I really focus on are the right nutrients for us as we come through our menopause transition. And so in terms of the nutrients for our cardiac health, then we know that vitamin C is really important. So I've got my fruit bowl here, and you can see that it's full of oranges, full of lemons. And even though it's winter here in New Zealand, I can still get oranges. Some of you going into summer, make sure you've got oranges in your fruit bowl. Get those into you. It doesn't matter whether you juice them or whether you eat them whole, but vitamin C helps in the absorption of iron. And vitamin C is really important in our gut health. So that's that's a crucial thing. I've got article after article after article, this is only a few, that are talking about the role of specific nutrients for cardiac health. And I've got more of those nutrients that I tell you about in the masterclass. But you can see here that my fruit bowl is always full. It's always got apples, which are really high in fiber and have quercetin. In light of the pandemic and the risk of COVID, our lung health is really important, and apples are fabulous for not only giving us natural sugars, but also to give us a compound called quercetin, which is helps to reduce the inflammation in our lungs. So that's a really important thing as well. So vitamin C is really important. Certainly apples are really important, and the red skin of apples. A lot of these fruits and vegetables have anti-inflammatory components. And menopause is a time where if we're not sleeping, if we are going through a changing estrogen and progesterone environment, we acquire or increase inflammation in the body. So it's a really important time of our lives to change our nutrition. The other thing that's a very big part of changing our nutrition is to understand that there are changes to the gut as we come through into our menopause and into our aging years. And some of those changes with the gut are, first and foremost, the action of the gut starts to slow down. And we also increase inflammation in the gut. Some of you might have irritable bowel syndrome or diverticulitis, or you've just felt changes that are going on in your gut. So it is an important time for the gut microbiome. There's fascinating research linking the gut microbiome to our mental health, so that's a big part of it. And I have a module in all of my programs and a standalone module on our gut health and some of the things that I want you to do to change your nutrition as you come into menopause. One of those changes is to increase your resistant starch. This is the type of starch that helps our gut microbiome heal and turn around some of those micronutrients in the gut that actually help our gut as we get older. And resistant starches are things like brown rice, things like having a banana, really important in terms of those of you who are exercising and therefore putting a lot of stress on your gut. I'm always saying that to my exercise ladies who are doing a lot of exercise. Remember, we're the first generation to come into menopause and post-menopause in the context of all the different ways of exercising. But it means that we really do need to look after ourselves and think about the types of foods that we're having for our changing estrogen environment. So resistant starch is really, really important. The other thing that's important for the gut microbiome is olive oil. You've heard me talk about olive oil a lot. This is a beautiful one here that's produced in New Zealand, and it's part of the Mediterranean diet. And the reason that I promote olive oil over all other oils is because of the fascinating research that has gone into the compounds within olive oil, a good quality extra virgin olive oil, that not only helps to improve the vascular stiffness that I talked about earlier, but also it helps to improve our joints. And there's a particular compound in olive oil which binds to the estrogen receptors that we have in our joints and basically prevents them from drying up. So there's lots of changes with our food that are really essential to as part of our transition into the next phase of our life, which of course is our aging years. And it's fascinating to me that a lot of the literature, a lot of the research that I have spent hours and hours reading positions women in their 50s in the aging literature, and that fascinated me because certainly when I turned 50, I'm a lot older than that now, but as I turned 50, I didn't think of myself as being in that particular demographic, being an older woman. But a lot of the reporting in the literature shows that as we come through menopause, it's a very vulnerable time for inflammation. And particularly if we're not sleeping, particularly if we're exercising, and particularly if we are experiencing changes to our joints, changes to our blood vessels, and there's also changes to our other organs as well. So this is just a heads up for you. The seasons are changing. You need to change up your nutrition. You need to fill your fruit bowl with beautiful vitamin C. You need to have a banana a day for resistant starch. Have some brown rice. I've got fabulous recipes that are part of my 12-week program. Get a good quality olive oil. You need at least 2 to 3 tablespoons a day. It gives you those beautiful omega-3 fats. And realize, perhaps the biggest thing I want you to understand is that it's an important time of our lives where we are looking into the future. We're looking at and imagining or reimagining the next 20, 30 years of staying healthy, having a very strong immune system. And if some of you are struggling already with your health, whether it's your joint health, your sleep, or you just really aren't feeling the way that you used to, then your menopause transition is a very important time to make some lifestyle changes that actually position you in a better environment, or a better kind of transition into your post-menopause years. And as I say, I position my menopause transformation programs around the woman's cardiac health research, the woman's gut health research, and also a lot of the changes and information that we have available to us to help mitigate or reduce inflammation. Inflammaging is a whole new term that's appeared in aging research, and I was fascinated that we're the first generation to come through so many changes to society. So if we can turn around how we eat, and turn around our sleep as we come through menopause, and we can get ourselves, get rid of the exhaustion that we often feel with so much going on, then the future is really, healthy for us. And I'm often saying to women in my programs, is thousands of women from around the world, it's never too late to turn around your health. Your body is always turning around cells and turning over cells, so we're always producing new cells. And what we can do is even if you're in post-menopause, you can make the right changes and you'll feel so much better as you go into the future. So this is, I'm Wendy, just checking in with you and hoping that everything is going well for you. Thank you for being part of my online community. I hope you enjoy my blogs. If you haven't listened to the masterclass, then make sure you do. And I've got a lot more information in there for you as well.